The money shades are off today. The reason why is because I just saw the best presentation I have ever seen in my entire life. And I'm going to watch it with you guys. Commentate it. I don't know. But this is more of a serious video. I'm not going to be going all crazy saying, I'm going to be saying a couple of radical things probably at some point in time. However, the reason why I've been posting these videos, the reason why I've been making this YouTube channel, is really based upon all of the underlying issues that are going to be discussed through this presentation. Because I'm worried. I'm genuinely concerned. I'm 21 years old, and I see a lot of these issues, and most people are not aware of it. And these people are my generation. I mean, these are my friends. These are the people I grew up with. I went to elementary school with. I went to middle school with. I went to high school with. They all went to college. I didn't go to college, but this video will be explaining why. I made that decision to take a path that most people didn't, that most people ended up taking, and the reason why was because I was able to see something that they couldn't see yet. And the objective of this YouTube channel is to educate and help as many of you see the underlying issues of the world, the economy, why things are happening, why why you're locked to a job, why you are stuck, why you're in this position where it's impossible to have a family. It's impossible to move out and grow up and become independent and become an adult. It is impossible for most people to accomplish that. I mean, there are people in their 30s, in their 40s that haven't even adulted yet. I mean, I speak to people in their 30s and I have a better understanding of what, of life. It's mind-blowing to me how unaware most people are of these things. And the reason why is because they're distracted. There's so many distractions out there. And the other thing is it's a form of self-accountability. You can't help people that don't listen. I'm not going to try and go out and talk to people and influence them I'm just not going to pass my knowledge to you if you're not genuinely interested in what I have to say. Because I'm just going to be wasting my energy on somebody who's going to take all of the information and the knowledge that I gave them, and they're going to fucking throw it in throw it in the trash. So, I could go on and on and on, but let's take a look at this video, and let's get started. Cool. Okay, actually, I want to... That's the other thing. When people are trying to build something, or they're trying to, for example, start a YouTube channel, you don't be a perfectionist. Look at what I'm doing. I'm literally, I'm like, oh, fuck, I can't full screen it, so I just zoomed in a little bit. It's not perfect, but you guys are still going to watch it because you value what I have to say. You're interested. You're engaged. All right, let's go. I don't know.
My name's Scott Galloway. I teach at NYU, and I appreciate your time. I have 44 slides in 720 seconds. Let's light this candle. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm actually a global television store. True story. I've had 4 TV series in the last 3 years. 2 of them have been canceled before they were launched, and 2 were canceled within 6 weeks. Let's recap.
All right, I'm going to skip to... I guess... Yeah, I'll watch the whole thing.
If we want to juice this thing, if we want to put a cattle prod up the ass of the economy... Bloomberg, the most trusted name in financial news. Not for long.
I'm going to do whatever I can for this country of ours.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Jesus, come on, dude. You're 0 for 2. Are you stuck? Face for podcasting. So, first insight of the day, I'd like to be the first person to welcome you to the last test. Okay. By the way, it's clear, what's it called? What are we here for? The Brave and the Brilliant? It's clear that Chris is a frustrated soap opera producer. Essentially what we have here is a telenovela where after a night of unbridled passion between Bill Gates and Malcolm Gladwell, they give birth to their bastard love child, Simon Sinek. Okay. I start us with a question. Do we love our children? Sounds like an illegitimate question, right? Well, I'm going to try and convince you otherwise. Essentially, as we go down generations, we're seeing that for the last 2 generations, people are making less money on an inflation-adjusted basis. In addition, the cost of buying a home, the cost of pursuing education continues to skyrocket. So the purchasing power, the prosperity is inversely correlated to age. Simply.
And this is the whole basis of all of the previous videos I made about blockchain tech, Bitcoin, perfect money. The problem that we have is the debasement of currency. He literally just is explaining that. And you're going to see that every single issue in this entire video stems from the issue of debasement of currency. And the resolution of that has been created. It's Bitcoin. And what's going to happen is there's going to be this great wealth transfer, and that wealth transfer is going to go to the youth, my generation. I'm going to, over the next couple of years, even the next 6 months, I'm going to obtain a lot of capital and power. I'm going to obtain all this wealth coming from boomers and the older generations, and it's going to get passed to us through this new technological advancement. The problem is the old infrastructure is going to collapse. The old infrastructure is the infrastructure that everyone operates on, because that's the infrastructure that currently exists. I mean, this is the biggest market to exist, is the market of money. All right, let's keep going.
Simply put, as we get younger, we're taking away opportunity and prosperity from our youngest. The social contract that is now no longer in place, and for the first time in the U.S.'s history, a 30-year-old is no longer doing as well as his or her parents were at 30. This is a breakdown in the fundamental agreement we have with any society, and it creates rage and shame. As a result, people over the age of 55 feel pretty good about America, but less than 1 in 5 people under the age of 34 feel very good about America. This creates an incendiary. Righteous movements, cuts to our society end up becoming opportunistic infections, because generally speaking, young people have a warranted envy, they're pissed off, and they're angry that they don't enjoy the same spoils and prosperity that were provided to our generation. A decent proxy for how much we value youth labor is minimum wage, and we've kept it purposely pretty low. If it had just kept pace with productivity, it'd be at about $23 a share, but we've decided to purposely keep it low. Out of reach, median home price has skyrocketed relative to median household income. As a result, pre-pandemic, the average mortgage payment was $1,100. It's now $2,300 because of an acceleration in interest rates and the fact that the average home has gone from $290,000 to $420,000. By the way,
So here's another thing. I work in real estate. I'm a real estate agent. I entered the business out of high school, and I'm a real estate agent. So I primarily work with millennials and people of the younger generation, because I'm very tech savvy, so I work better with those people. The thing is, for example, the reason why real estate is so expensive is because it's not the fact that the real estate is worth more, it's the fact that the dollar value that we're pegging the real estate to is worth less. And as they print more and more money, people perceive real estate as being super, super expensive. It's not expensive, it's just as valuable. It's just as scarce. It's just it's pegged to the dollar. And the dollar is losing its value. So it's all people are perceiving real estate to be more expensive, and they're like, oh my God, it's going to crash. It's not going to crash if they keep printing money. It's not going to crash if they keep printing money. Like, it's because it's pegged to the dollar. So I just want you guys to understand this. Like, this is a systemic issue that's impacting everything, even real estate. And I work in that industry, and I work with a lot of people, clients, families. Like, these are families that I work with, and they're looking to buy and move into their forever home to raise their kids. And a lot of them aren't making the decision to buy it, and they're renting instead, because they can't get over the fact that real estate is perceived to be so expensive. So they think it's going to crash, so they're waiting for prices to come down. But at the end of the day, the Fed is going to print more money because they have to pay off interest and debts. They gotta roll it over. And when they do that, assets appreciate in value because of inflation. And because these people didn't end up buying a house, and like, this is me educating you guys, because they didn't buy the house to raise their family and they ended up renting, they're no longer accumulating any wealth, because all of the wealth, instead of holding their money in real estate, which appreciates when they print money, They just keep it in cash, which depreciates when they print money. And now you have all these families that are renting, paying off an investor's mortgage, somebody who's smart, rich people, because rich people own real estate because it appreciates. And instead, these families end up really fucking themselves over a long period of time because they're holding cash and that's being debased. So, you know, as a real estate agent, that's why understanding this systemic issue is so important, because if you can advise and educate your own clients, and you can change their perspective of the of why real estate is so inflated or so expensive because it's inflated, and they make a purchase, you can like, I'm helping, like, you can help families. You're helping people. So yeah, like, that's, I don't know, I just wanted to tie that in because I directly work in the real estate business, and I see this every day, and I try to educate as many people about the issue of debasement of currency, so then they can live a prosperous future and have a family and, you know, live the most fulfilling life possible for them.
Expensive homes in the world, based on this metric, are number 3, Vancouver. Why? Because 60% of the cost of building a home goes to permits. Because guess what? The incumbents that own assets have weaponized government to make it very difficult for new entrants to ever get theof their own assets.
And he's making another point here, and what he's meaning, and I think he talks about it later on in the video, is like, old people own majority of the real estate. Most of the wealth is owned by old people, or boomers per se, and they own most of the real estate, right? And how is this real estate going to get transferred to the next generation if, and this is another inflationary cause, is they're making it more difficult for you to open permits. It becomes more expensive. You know, for example, if you bought a house and you want the neighborhood to stay really quiet, you're going to restrict growth, and that increases the barrier to entry. I guess I'm not really making a very good point. But he explained, he gets into detail on this later, and he's really good at explaining
Assets, thereby elevating their own net worth. This is the transfer I'm going to be speaking about. This has resulted in an enormous transfer of wealth, where people over the age of 70 used to control 19% of household income, versus people under the age of 40 used to control 12. Their wealth has been cut in half. This isn't by accident, it's purposeful. This is me at UCLA in 1987. I know your first thought is I haven't changed a bit. This is also Mia Silverio, who is the analyst who put together these slides. By the way, Mia is 26. I did the math. Just by virtue of her being in this audience, it brings the average age of the entire conference down 11 days. When I applied to UCLA, the admissions rate was 76%. Today, it's 9%. I received a 2.23 GPA from UCLA. I learned nothing but how to make bombs out of household items in every line from Planet of the Apes. And the greatest public school in the world, Berkeley, decided to let me in with a 2.27 GPA. And that's what higher ed is about. Higher ed is about taking unremarkable kids and giving them a shot at being remarkable. And every year, it's gotten more expensive. Higher ed and homes, and the ability, not only is higher ed incredibly expensive, it's not accessible, because me and my colleagues are drunk on luxury, and I'll come back to that. We've embraced the ultimate strategy. Me and my colleagues in higher ed wake up every morning and ask ourselves the same question when we look in the mirror. How can I increase my compensation while reducing my accountability? And we have found the ultimate strategy. It's called an LVMH strategy, where we artificially constrain supply to create aspiration and scarcity such that we can raise tuition faster than inflation. And old people and wealthy people have done the same thing with housing. All of a sudden, once you own a home, you become very concerned with traffic, and you make sure that there's no new housing permits. And here is a memo to
Yeah, and tying this into real estate, that's a very good point, where policy impacts the where you can create policy and restrictions to then increase the scarcity of certain things, such as real estate or access to real estate, making it more expensive. So if you own real estate, You are going to enforce policy that it prevents change because it is in your incentive to do so, because then the value of your real estate goes up. When we're tying this into colleges, for example, colleges want to create a scarcity factor so then they can increase the cost of tuition. So then they allow they stop growing, they stop increasing the enrollment, they increase their barrier to entry, making it harder to enter. And by creating the scarcity factor, they can now increase the price and make it more profitable. And then this is why he goes into it, where college is a complete fucking scam. It's a business. It's a for-profit business. It's not an education system. It is a for-profit business.
My colleagues in higher ed, we're public servants, not fucking Chanel bags. Harvard is the best example of this. They've increased their endowment in the last 40 years and have decided to expand their enrollment, their freshman class, by 4%.
Dude. Harvard's endowment is, they have more cash than McDonald's. Wait, this is a crazy stat. Harvard's endowment. $50.9 billion. Harvard has $59.9 billion. Wait, how much does McDonald's hold in cash? McDonald's has like $4.57 billion. Harvard has more economic power than the largest fast food chain in the entire fucking world. How many fucking locations are there? How many McDonald's franchises are there? Franchisees. There's 41,800 franchised McDonald's. And they have almost $5 billion in cash. Yet Harvard has $50 billion in endowments. They're not endowments. They're not donations. This is a for-profit business. There are people that are making these decisions that are... okay, I'm going to shut up and keep watching.
Any university that doesn't grow their freshman class faster than population, that has over $1 billion in endowment, should lose their tax-free status because they're no longer in higher...
And that's another thing. They're not even fucking paying taxes. Like, you work a salary job and you're paying, depends on where you live. If you're living in California, you're paying 50% in taxes. You're paying income tax, you're paying federal and state tax. You're working for 6 months out of the year for free. And then you have this business called college that is not paying taxes, and they have $50 billion in cash in their back pocket.
For education, they're a hedge fund offering classes.
Wait, I want to reloop that so you can get the full.
By 4%. Any university that doesn't grow their freshman class faster than population, that has over $1 billion in endowment, should lose their tax-free status because they're no longer in higher education. They're a hedge fund offering classes.
They're literally, they are, I need to stop saying literally. They are hedge funds. They're hedge funds. Colleges are now hedge funds. That's what they are.
My first recommendation, Biden should take some of that $750 billion earmarked to bail out the 1/3 of people that got to go to college on the backs of the 2/3 that didn't, and give $1 billion to our 500 greatest public institutions, size adjusted, in exchange for three things. One, they use technology and scale to reduce tuition by 2% a year, expand enrollments by 6% a year, and increase the number of vocational certifications and non-traditional four-year degrees by 20%. Where does that get us? In just 10 years, that doubles the freshman seats and cuts the cost in half. This isn't radical. This is called college in the 80s and 90s. Another transfer of wealth. Look at what's happened to wages. Oh, they've gone up, not as much as corporate profits. There's a healthy tension between capital and labor. For the last 40 years, capital has been kicking the shit out of labor. Well, you think, whoa, what about wages, right? They've gone up. Well, if you compare them to the S&P, they barely register. It's been an amazing time to own assets, but your attempt to get the certification or the income such that you can acquire assets has gotten hard.
Wait, I want to touch on this. So Look at this chart. Median income relative to the S&P 500. The growth of the median income is irrelevant to the S&P 500. Now understand this. The average person, the middle class, which doesn't exist anymore, by the way, the middle class is gone. We have the lower class, then you have the 1%. They don't own, the middle class, or the lower class, they don't own assets. They don't own the S&P. They don't invest in companies. They don't purchase these things. And a huge reason why is because they were never educated on it. This is not taught in high school or the public school system or elementary school. And that's on purpose. That's done on purpose. Because the same people that control these monetary policies also control they also have huge amounts of control over the syllabuses that are taught in the education system. And it's strategically, like, this is all strategy. So there's a reason why this is not taught in school. And this goes back to the problem that I was initially saying, is that when we print money, rich people get richer, the average person gets poorer. And that's been happening since 1970. Since 1972, when we went off the gold standard.
Assets, but your attempt to get the certification or the income such that you can acquire assets has gotten harder and harder. In my class of 300 kids, it's never been easier to be a billionaire. It's never been harder to be a millionaire. By the way, our job in higher ed isn't to identify a top 1% of people who are freakishly remarkable or have rich parents and turn them into a superclass of billionaires. It's to give the bottom 90 a chance to be in the top 10. You know.
And that's why I'm making these videos, to give you a chance. Because this information is not taught, and it's actually canceled. It's actually monitored and taken down. Like, I'm honestly generally concerned if my YouTube videos are going to get completely taken down, because this stuff is controlled, and the access to this information is, they're trying to control and limit access to it. So.
Who doesn't need me or higher education?
And when I say they have no idea who these people are. I just know that they hold most of the world's capital, and I don't truly know what group of people it is or who it is. It doesn't matter, though. It doesn't matter who it is. What matters is that this is the issue, and you need to save yourself, because at the end of the day, life is every man for themselves, or every woman for themselves. That's just how it is. So
the whole point of higher ed is to give the unremarkables, i.e. yours truly, who was raised by a single immigrant mother, a shot at being remarkable. The transfer has been purposeful. While the cohorts, corporations, and the ultra-wealthy continue to garner more and more of our wealth, we have decided, if they win the gold, let's give them the silver and the bronze, and let's lower their taxes. This transfer is purposeful. It's not by accident. And it works. Senior poverty is way down, and we should celebrate that. Meanwhile, child poverty is flat to up. The third rail, I'm going to talk about Social Security. It would cost $11 billion to expand the child tax credit, but that got stripped out of the infrastructure bill. But the additional $135 billion a year to Social Security, that flies right through Congress. And every year we transfer $1.4 trillion from a cohort that is increasingly doing less well to the cohort that is the wealthiest cohort in the history of this planet. I'm not against Social Security, but the criteria should be if you need it, not whether you have a catheter. 80% of you have absolutely no reason to ever take Social Security. It is bankrupting our nation, and we have fallen under this mythology that somehow it's this great social program. No, it's not. It's the great transfer of wealth from young to old. How is this happening? Because our representatives are, in fact, representative. Old people vote. Washington has become a cross between the land of the dead and the Golden Girls. Quite frankly, this is fucking ridiculous. And if I sound ageist, I am. And you know who else is ageist? Biology.
And it, like, I do take this personal in a way because my parents are in their 50s and they, they haven't adopted, you know, technology. They kind of stopped advancing, and that's what happens when you get older, and I get it. That's normal. And everyone, I'm sure everyone experiences this in a different way, but they haven't kept up with the Joneses, and they're absorbing the same information from the same media, established companies that are owned by the same people that control all of these things, the representatives that represent themselves, the old people in the fucking cabinet that he just showed. It's hard because they don't. It's just fucking hard. Like, they think I'm consuming information that is deceptive, that's radical, that's because it goes against everything that they are learning. For example, I mean, I guess I'll take this to gender. Like, my mom doesn't even believe in gender roles. Like, that's, oh my gosh, it's crazy to me. Like, yes, there are gender roles. Like, women were bred to nurture and raise. Men were built to provide and protect. Like, yeah, that's how it's been throughout all of human history. And there's a beautiful thing about it in both sides. So, like, it's just hard because the culture that's being created through the old school media is radical. It's disgusting. And my parents are fully into it. And I'm going to do what I can to help them understand. But, like, it's just, that's the thing about, like, the whole cabinet. It is of their interest to create these policies to make them more money. And it's fucking up my generation. And that's why I take it personal.
When Speaker Pelosi had her first child, get this, 2/3 of households didn't have color televisions, and Castro had just declared martial law. But she's supposed to understand the challenges of a 17-year-old girl who's 5'9", 95 pounds, getting tips on dieting and extreme dieting from Facebook. She's supposed to understand the challenges that a 27-year-old single mother face. By the way, young and dreamy. Young and dreamy. The great intergenerational theft took place under the auspices of a virus. I know.
Yeah. And the whole virus thing he's about to talk about, it was complete theft. They're stealing from you without even knowing it. Without you even knowing it. COVID was the biggest form of of theft through taxation that you don't see.
Use the greatest health crisis in the century to really speedball the transfer. This is the NASDAQ from 2008 to 2012. We let the markets crash. And by the way, you need churn, you need disruption because it seeds and recalibrates advantage and wealth from the incumbents to the entrants. It's a natural part of the cycle. But wait, lately, no, 1 million people dying would be bad, but what would be tragic is if we let the NASDAQ go down and guys like me lost wealth. So we pumped the economy, which again, increased the massive transfer of wealth. The best 2 years of my life, COVID, more time with my kids, more time with Netflix, and my value of my stocks absolutely exploded. And who has to pay for my prosperity? Not me.
We do. We do. And that's why I take it personally. My friends are going to have to pay for this. And it's, fuck.
Future generations who will have to deal with an unprecedented level of debt. Why am I here and why do I get the prosperity I enjoy? Because in 2008, we bailed out the banks, but we didn't bail out the economy. We let the markets fall. So as I was coming into my prime income earning years, I got to buy, no joke, these stocks at these prices. This is where those stocks are now. Where does a young person find disruption? When you bail out the baby boomer owner of a restaurant, all you're doing is robbing opportunity from the 26-year-old graduate of a culinary academy that wants her shot. We need disruption.
And we have a shot. We have a shot. It's blockchain tech. It's Bitcoin. That's our shot.
We're economically attacking the young, but I know, let's attack their emotional and mental well-being. Let's take advantage of the fact of the flaws in our species with medieval institutions, Paleolithic instincts, and godlike technology. I'm just going to say, I think Mark Zuckerberg has done more damage to young people in our nation while making more money than any person in history. Oh, but wait, what could be worse? It's as if we let an adversary implant a neural jack into our youth to raise a generation of civic, military, and business leaders that hate America. How can we be this stupid? All right, this all adds up to a bunch of graphs all headed up and to the right. And what are they? What's the first one? Oh, that's self-harm rates, which have exploded, especially among girls, since my colleague Jonathan Haidt pointed out it's really gone crazy since social went on mobile. What's the next one? Teens with depression. The next one, men and women not having sex. Biggest fear of my parents was that I was going to get in too much trouble.
And this kind of ties in because I was having, like, for example, my mom, we were talking about gender roles, right? And how here's the other thing. Society treats men and women very differently. If you're a man and you're, for example, like we're talking about men and women having less sex. If you're a man and you do not have money and you're not able to provide housing, food on the table, and you're not in a position where you would be able to provide food on the table, housing, good education for children, women aren't going to be attracted to you. And society's going to fuck you up. It's going to fuck you up. And that's what for example, my mom doesn't understand. It's that, yes, there are gender roles. And a big problem is that a lot of boys, people going to college, graduating high school, young adults, these people aren't being transitioned into men because they're being told otherwise. And how society is teaching our generation is completely backwards. And it's creating a lot of these systemic issues, I think. Personal opinion.
Not having sex. Biggest fear of my parents was that I was going to get in too much trouble. My biggest fear, honestly, is that my kids aren't going to get into enough trouble. By the way, my advice to every young person watching this program is go out, drink more, and make a series of bad decisions that might pay off.
I'm going to be doing that on Saturday night this weekend because I have not been doing that in like 10 months.
Next graph, cumulative gun deaths. You're more likely to be shot in the United States if you're a toddler or an infant than a cop. Next graph, obesity, way up. By the way, the industrial food complex wants to addict you to shitty, fatty food so they can hand you over to the industrial diabetes complex. We should not romanticize obesity. You're not finding your fucking truth. You're finding diabetes.
It's so fucking true. Like, I'm sorry. I'm hard on you, but it's real. Like, there's a reason why obesity is an issue. It's not, the reason why is because the food you're eating is drugged. You're eating straight drugs, and they're addictive. And you stop eating the processed food, and then you fiend for more. And this also ties in because the same companies that own the processed food companies also own the pharmaceutical companies. So they're creating an issue through processed food, and the issue is diabetes. And then they're also creating the solution, and they're profiting off of both ends. So that's like saying, that's like going to the front door, burning the house down, and then showing up with a back door with a fire extinguisher. You're perceived as the solution. You're perceived as somebody good. But at the end of the day, you're the one who burned the fucking house down in the first place. So I guess that analogy wasn't extremely relevant, but it's kind of relevant. But the idea is that, like, a lot of these issues are the incentives of these huge corporations, and they're for profit. So you have to look at their incentives, and their incentives are to drug the population through processed foods, making them fat, obese, and then they have health issues, and then they get sent to the pharmaceutical companies, and then they profit off of the issues that come with obesity. And then, even crazier, is that they use insurance so that the people paying for it is us, taxpayers. Oh my God. It's so fucked up when you understand how the economy works. Because 99.9999999% of people have no perception of reality. And this is why Andrew Tate blew up, because the Matrix is real. Like, the idea of the Matrix, the idea that your life, and my cousin was writing an essay. He just graduated from Rice in Houston. I was just at their school. They had a great commencement speaker too. She was awesome. He wrote he had to write an essay. One of his final essays was, do we have free will? Most people don't. Because most people have no idea that the entire path of their life is controlled by this whole system. Like, for example, they're eating McDonald's, so then they get addicted, and no, here's a better example. They're in high school and they're 17, 18 years old. And they're told their whole life to go to college. So they go to college and they take out student loans. And then they graduate college. And now they have $80,000 in debt. And they have a degree, but they can't really get a high-paying job with it because the market is too competitive. They have no free will. They didn't make one decision themselves. And people do have free will, because you have to break from the norm. And you have to learn how to make your own decisions separate from the people closest in your life, your parents. You know how hard it is to go to your parent, somebody who spent their entire life loving you and trying to create an opportunity for you to live an amazing life. And then you go to them and say, hey, mom and dad, everything that you've done for me, I'm walking away from, and I'm doing this. You know how hard that is? I had to do it myself. My mom was fucking probably broken for months emotionally. It's not an easy thing to do. And I don't know. All right, I'm getting really off topic here, but yeah.
Overdose deaths, way up. Deaths of despair. When I was in high school, it was drunk driving. Now it's kids killing themselves. Young people don't want to have kids anymore. 2/3 of people aged 30 to 34, able-bodied, used to decide to have at least one child. It's been cut in half. It's now less than a third, 27%. As a result, people over the age of 60 in the US, pretty happy. People under the age of 30, not so much. Some of the lowest in the free world. What can we do? Nothing wrong with America that can't be fixed with what's right with it. We got the hard stuff figured out. There are programs to address all of these issues. They cost a lot of money. That's the hard part. And we have figured this out. In just 5 minutes post an earnings call, we can add $250 billion to the economy. We've got the hard part figured out, the resources. We have the money, but we decide not to do it. This is per capita spending on childcare in the United States relative to other nations. This is housing permits. Things are doable. We increase minimum wage to $25 an hour. It goes into the economy. The wonderful things about low and middle income households is they spend all their money. We have to have a progressive tax structure with alternative minimum tax on corporations and wealthy individuals. We need to refund the IRS. We need to reform Social Security. It should be based on whether you need the money, not on how old you are. We need a negative income tax. My friend Andrew Yang screwed up a great idea, but he branded it incorrectly. Instead of calling it UBI, he should have got Republicans on board by calling it a negative income tax.
Yeah, and Andrew Yang, I was really young. I was like 16 during this election, I think, or 17, maybe 15. I can't remember. But he was marketing universal basic income, where every single person gets $1,000 a month. That's not, like you said, the problem with that marketing is that none of the Republicans are going to get on board because they're going to see it as a socialistic idea. But what it is, it's a negative income tax. That's really what it is. Because if you think about it, your money's getting taxed through inflation, and that money needs to, if that's how it is, then we need the solution.
We need to eliminate the capital gains tax deduction. When did we decide that the money that capital earns is more noble than the money that sweat earns? Shouldn't it be flipped?
And that's a great point, because it should be flipped. Why do I get taxed less when I make money by putting capital into a company and doing nothing, and I get taxed less for those gains than if I were to work my human labor, and I get taxed astronomically higher through income tax? And that's what I was saying before, is that this thing's a little bothering me now. Income tax is it's complete fraud, and capital gains tax, I'm paying 15% on my long-term holds, 15% on my gains, and I have some pretty astronomically high gains, and I'm paying very, very little in taxes on those. And the other thing is, I'm a business owner. You know how much I paid in taxes last year? $120. $120. Why? Because I'm an independent contractor. I own a business. I don't get income taxed. My income doesn't get taxed. I mean, it will get taxed if I decide not to write it off. And, you know, it is going to, over time, I will have to pay taxes in order to qualify for a conventional loan, because they will only provide a loan to somebody who, a conventional loan to somebody who has taxable income to show. But also, I'm in a very different financial position, so I'm not going to get into that, but.
We need to remove 230 protection for all algorithmically elevated content. We need identity verification. The reason we can have identity verification is because we have a First Amendment. Break up big tech. We have monopolies that are incurring greater and greater costs on every small business and parents because, again, see above, our representatives don't understand these technologies. We need to age gate social media. There's absolutely no reason anyone under the age of 16 should ever be on social media.
Yes.
We need universal pre-K. We need to reinstate the expanded child tax credit. We need term limits, see above Andrew Yang. We need income-based affirmative action. Any visible signs of affirmative action make no sense at all. You would rather be born gay or non-white in the United States today than poor, and that's a sign of our progress and our need to recalibrate who we give advantage to. Affirmative action, of which I'm a beneficiary of, I got Pell Grants, I got unfair advantage. Affirmative action is a wonderful thing, and it should be based on color. It should be based on green, how much money you have or don't have. Expand college enrollment and vocational programs, mental health, ban phones in schools, invest in third places, big brothers and sisters programs. We need national service. We need to tell people in the United
Now, the ban phone, no, actually, I kind of agree with that. Yeah, now I'm thinking about it. I mean, you obviously we need technology in school, because technology is it's how the economy we run off of tech now. But yeah, I mean, I guess ban phones and allow computers so you can do actual work. But yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting one, because that one gets really complicated, because you know you have to know how to use these technologies to succeed in the real world. So that's the only one I'm like, there's a weird middle point there. But like you said, up until 16, I think you should not be able to have social media. Like, that's a very valid point.
United States and Canada, that they live in the greatest countries in the world, and we need to remind them of that every day by exposing them to other great Americans where they feel connected tissue.
But talking back about the social media point, I don't agree with that to a full extent, because I had YouTube, and I was able to learn all this when I was 14 because of YouTube. So, you know, limiting access, it's a really hard point there, where it's like, how much do you limit access to for kids?
We can do all of this. We can do all of it. We have the resources. The question is, do we have the will? This is my last slide. It is an emotionally manipulative slide to try and get you to like me more. But it does have a message. This is the whole shooting match. Anybody here without kids, ask someone with kids. You have your world of work, you have your world of friends, you have your world of kids. Something happens here, your whole world shrinks to this.
Damn, bro. You can tell he's getting emotional. Just look at his fucking eyes. But yeah, I mean, I take these issues very, very personally. I'm genuinely concerned for a lot of people in my generation. We're gonna have a very big war to fight in the future. Um, and yeah, if you want to be on the right side, the good, I should say the good side, but uh, the more comfortable side, give me a subscribe and turn on that notification bell because I'm pretty passionate about this. I don't think I'm gonna stop making these. I mean, I will eventually stop if I don't, but for the most part, when I have something that I'm like, somebody can live a better life if I share this, I'm gonna put it out here for you guys. All right, later.